Hey there, fellow engineers and home labbers. Today we're going to do something pretty simple. We're going to look at setting up, enabling, and configuring the UFW. UFW is the firewall used in Ubuntu. And we're going to go through quite a few of the ways to configure it so that it's working for exactly what you want. Along with a bunch of my other videos, I tend to use Apache as a reverse proxy. You may be using Nginx or Trafic or anything like that. And so if you're pushing a lot of internet traffic directly to your Ubuntu machine, it's a good idea to set up the universal firewall. That way you can be sure that you are only allowing things to go through that you want to go through. And in general, when it comes to traffic from the internet, you want to block everything and only allow the things that you specifically know that you will need. With that, let's take a look and let's get into it. The first thing to do with UFW stands for uncomplicated firewall, and in fact it is quite uncomplicated. First thing to do is take a look at the status. For that, we're going to type in sudo UFW status. We'll see that it's inactive. If you do not have the uncomplicated firewall installed, sudo apt-get install UFW. The command for allowing SSH is sudo UFW allow SSH. You'll see here, very simply, it added rules, rule added v6. Now we're going to actually enable it, sudo UFW enable. This says that it may disrupt a connection. I'm not concerned, so now the firewall is active and enabled. You will notice for a lot of your packages, you can simply refer to them by name. And so you can type sudo UFW allow and then your package name, and it will automatically add rules. And that's great. But let's take a look at getting some things that are a little bit deeper. So for one, I don't use IPv6 at all. And so even from a firewall, I just want to straight disable it. So I'm going to go to sudo nano etc default UFW. Inside of here, we have IPv6. Just type no. I am not planning on changing anything else inside of the uncomplicated firewall setup. When you want your rules to take effect, what you will need to do is type sudo UFW reload. And it will take it a second or two, but you'll see that the firewall has now reloaded, which is good. So beyond this, another way to add different rules beyond just allowing the ports by using package names like Apache and SSH, you can specifically allow certain ports. When you're working with UFW, one of the very first things that you want to do is deny all incoming traffic. Now you do need to be a little bit careful. When you go and do this and apply it, if you have not effectively allowed yourself to access it, you will in fact block yourself. In order to deny incoming traffic by default, we're going to type sudo UFW default deny incoming. So this has effectively told the uncomplicated firewall, if you don't know what to do, the answer is to block it. which is exactly how we want things set up. We want to block everything and only allow the things that we want. Let's take a look at setting up a bit of a more complicated rule. So let's say that we want to set up SSH to be allowed, but we only want to allow SSH from our home network. As many of you could potentially think, there is not a lot of good reason to allow outside actors to SSH into your server. And since this is the server that is exposed to the internet, that is very potentially an attack vector that people might want to use. Now, along with that, you might ask yourself, but wait, what if I'm not at home and I want to SSH into my server? The answer for that is using a VPN and having a VPN set up on your home network, which will allow you to VPN into your home network and then SSH across to your server, where it will appear that even though you are not actually at home, you might as well be at home because you will be coming from your home network and not from the outside due to your VPN. I'm sure that at some point in the not too distant future, I will go through setting up a VPN on Unify. But for now, we'll just leave it as, even if you deny SSH from outside, you yourself should still be able to SSH in as long as you VPN into your own network. The way to allow an IP range access on a certain port, this is somewhat similar to when Apache only allows certain people to access certain things from IPs. It's the same thing for the uncomplicated firewall. We're going to type sudo UFW allow from, and then your IP range. For me, my default network that all my computers are on is 0 VLAN, so 192.168.0.0/24. That means any IP address on this 192.168.0 VLAN. And then we will type to any port 22 proto TCP. This pseudo UFW allow from your IP range to any port 22 proto TCP. The rule has been added. We're all set. Now you may notice that I have effectively allowed SSH in two different ways. And we can see that by going to sudo UFW status. You'll see 22/TCP is allowed both from anywhere as well as only from my home network. And so what we can do with this is we can do sudo UFW status and then type in numbered. This will give every single one of my rules a number. And in order to remove one, we can type sudo UFW delete and then the number of the rule. And in my case, rule number 2 here is 22/TCP from anywhere. I want to delete that out. Once again, we'll type sudo UFW status. And so now I am allowing Samba, Apache, and port 22 only from my home network. This looks pretty good to me. With that, let's reload. So sudo UFW reload. And now these new rules will be applied. At any point, if you want to disable your firewall, it's probably not the best idea, but if you wanted to do it temporarily, sudo UFW disable is how you go ahead and disable your firewall. typing that in, it will tell you that firewall is stopped and is now disabled. For me, I want to keep it enabled, so I'm going to put it back up. If we want to get more information when we are doing something like allowing Apache, we can type sudo UFW app info and Apache. And this will tell us what it actually allows. So you'll see this is actually only allowing port 80, which is HTTP, but it is not allowing HTTPS. To allow Apache to transmit on both HTTP and HTTPS, the rule that we currently had was not going to work because it would only do HTTP. So in order to get it to work correctly, we're going to type sudo allow Apache full, and we're going to put Apache full in quotes. Now another way that we could do this, sudo UFW allow HTTP, sudo UFW allow HTTPS. If we have an application that is running over a range of ports, the way that we enable and allow entire range of ports is sudo UFW allow, and then the beginning port number, we'll just say 10,000, and then you put a colon and maybe 11,000. So this 10,000 is the beginning port number and the 11,000 is the ending port number. And then you can either leave it as that and it will do both TCP and UDP, or you can specify which one with /TCP. This will now allow anything trying to come in through ports 10,000 to 11,000 over the TCP protocol. If you want to deny specific IP addresses, maybe you're getting DDoS attacks or something like that, or maybe you notice somebody from an IP trying to do malicious things, you can disable access to specific IP addresses automatically. Now remember that in general, we disable and block any port that we don't have open. But even with that, you may notice malicious actors trying to do something on ports that you do have open, like 80 or 443. To block an IP address, a specific IP address, we can simply sudo UFW deny from and then IP address. Let's say 123.123.123.123. This will specifically block this one IP address from doing anything on our system. You can get even more specific and type sudo UFW deny from 123.123.123.123 to any port 22. This rule here will deny from this 123 IP address on port 22 specifically. So that's how you delete or deny specific IPs, including going to specific ports. One last thing that you will likely want to do is sudo UFW default allow outgoing. This just says that by default, your firewall is not going to block things trying to go out from your server. And for us, we want to use the firewall to block incoming stuff. We don't particularly want to block stuff going out. That's it for the uncomplicated firewall. We went over how to add things into the firewall, allow incoming connections along specific IP addresses, how to set up the defaults for your firewall to effectively block everything but allow outgoing traffic. We looked at setting up specific services like Apache or SSH and how to configure those. We looked at how to configure your firewall to turn off IPv6. We looked at how to set up your firewall and configure it so that you can effectively delete rules out that you don't need, how to look at the status of your firewall, enabling and disabling your firewall. We did a ton of different things. This one guide should effectively be how you use UFW for any instance that you need. This should have covered just about everything that I could think of that you would want or need to do with UFW. Thank you so much for watching my videos, home labbers and engineers. I create and edit all of these videos on my own, so any likes and subscribes will massively help out the channel and allow me to continue creating content to help people. If you got value out of this, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel to be notified when new content drops. If there's something I've not covered but you would like to see a video on it, please leave a comment down below. And again, a massive thank you to everyone. I hope you have a great day.